Nintendo has given Mario massive amounts of fanfare since his inception back in the 1980s, and rightfully so, considering that he is arguably a bigger household name than any other video game character. From competing in an extreme version of soccer in Super Mario Strikers Battle League, to hosting his biggest party game ever in Super Mario Party Jamboree, and even innovating his homestay platforming gameplay in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the mustachioed plumber has gone on nearly every adventure imaginable. During the Nintendo Switch era, Nintendo has paid special attention to his various RPG series, with the introduction of the Mario plus Rabbids games, remakes of both Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and the return of the Mario and Luigi series. With Mario's 40th anniversary rapidly approaching, I found myself asking what surprises Nintendo may have up their sleeve to celebrate this iconic character and excite fans. As one of my all-time favorite content creators, Nintendo Forecast, has pointed out in recent videos, Nintendo 1 is all but certainly gearing up to give Mario a fantastic 40th anniversary lineup. 2. The company has placed a strong emphasis on expanding their mascot characters for transmedia use. 3. There has been a noticeable uptick in narrative-driven Mario game representation on the current console. And 4. Nintendo will need high-quality yet easily achievable games to aid the transition between consoles throughout the coming year or two. If you are interested in hearing more about what Nintendo Forecast has to say, I will leave a link to his channel below. He always goes incredibly in-depth and looks at various topics from a very logical yet analytical place. The infamous Shigeru Miyamoto has been vocal about how he approaches game development, specifically his gameplay first process. In an IGN interview from February 2023, he said, "Story is one way of explaining a game. For example, when there's an interactive game, the experience for everyone is different. One of the most enjoyable things about a PC or a computer is that it provides the same thing to everybody. That interesting aspect is something you have to keep pulling out as you keep playing and keep playing and keep playing." I think story is just another way to pull out enjoyment from this experience. Another way to focus on that enjoyment is to focus on a gameplay experience that gets you to try things over and over again. As I mentioned, story is one way to explain the game, and when that goes well, sometimes people take the route when creating their next game of starting with a story. For me, the starting story is how to make the gameplay fun, and that's how I begin thinking about and creating a game. In keeping Miyamoto's process in mind, as well as the strategies highlighted by Nintendo Forecast, it seems plausible that Nintendo may want to create a new type of Mario game to increase the character's cadence of releases. Recent studio acquisitions, namely Nintendo Cube and Shiver Entertainment, show that Nintendo has the personnel to ramp up development as they enter a new console era with the coming Switch 2. However, that leaves me asking, what type of game could be new for Mario but not overly exhaustive in terms of development needs? How can they innovate without taking away too much from pre-existing franchises and development teams? Nintendo will need to strike a balance between development teams while they create games for both Switch consoles over the next few years, so feasibility and scope will need to take precedence during planning, I would imagine. The first thing that comes to mind is the possibility of a visual novel game starring Mario and friends. To explain my rationale behind a potential Mario visual novel, I want to explore why this makes sense for Nintendo from a business perspective, who would lead development on this project, and what this game may look like. So let's dive in. It's no secret that the Mario movie released in 2023 was a box office smash hit, and that Nintendo has started to pursue a transmedia approach with their intellectual properties. They're creating films, expanding their theme parks, and finally providing fans with a streaming service for their iconic soundtracks. However, despite how long Mario has been a staple of Nintendo's brand, he has seen very little variation in his game's narrative structure. By this point, we all know the story of Bowser kidnapping Peach and Mario having to rush through the world to save the day and bring her back home to the Mushroom Kingdom. And while the various Mario RPG games such as Paper Mario, Mario and Luigi, and such have offered a bit of variation to the storyline, there really hasn't been much else in any of his games. This seems like something that Nintendo would want to change as they expand the Mario Cinematic Universe, as well as create new theme parks and expand the Nintendo Museum in Japan. So what sort of game could they create that could allow this to happen? My first thought is a visual novel type game. We've seen Famicom Detective Club, Another Code, Ace Attorney, and so many other visual novels do incredibly well on Nintendo's consoles throughout the years. And Mario has proven through his RPG series that he can have narrative variation. But at the same time, the big question remains, how can this be done without taking away development time, staff, and money from other departments and games? That is where the idea of a visual novel comes into play. This could act as a sort of gap filler series for Mario. It would be easier to develop in between mainline 3D/2D Mario games, and it would help Nintendo to keep a constant output of Mario without burning fans out on the same few games such as platformers, sports games, and the Paper Mario series. A visual novel would also lean into Nintendo's enjoyment of a narrative-driven Mario as of late. Think about it. We've seen the Kingdom Battle/Sparks of Hope games, Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario, Origami King, and Thousand Year Door, as well as Mario and Luigi Brothership all on the Switch. It's clear that Nintendo does see some narrative value to Mario. With so many studios already working on various Mario titles, the next question is who could work on a Mario visual novel game? As we have seen over the past 3 or so years, Nintendo has been more willing to acquire studios following the financial success of the Switch. Just look at the acquisition of Nintendo Cube, formerly Indie Cube, Monolith Soft, and a few others that have taken place recently. But Nintendo also has many studios that they collaborate with on a consistent basis that they can ask for help, such as Mages, Next Level, and Grezzo. To me, Mages seems to be the most likely as a support studio considering their prior work on the Famicom Detective Club series. While it was a much more niche IP, it is still one that they handled with great care and brought into a whole new light. And I know for me that last year's release of Emio the Smiling Man was one of my favorite games of the year period. So if we see that Nintendo does have the desire to make a new Mario game, and they have the support from studios to be able to do so, what would this game even look like? In traditional visual novel fashion, this would most likely be a mystery of some sort, because that kind of storyline lends itself very well to the visual novel format. And so thinking about this, I have come up with 3 different story ideas. The first story idea would be probably the safest one for Nintendo to approach, and that being the mystery of Bowser kidnapping Peach. This would allow Nintendo to keep with a storyline that they know that they can do well, but also bring Mario into a new genre format. Imagine instead of having to go through the Mushroom Kingdom in various lands, jumping on Goombas and fighting Koopalings, you are instead going around questioning people to figure out where Peach is. I could very easily see this working out in everybody's favor. It would give Nintendo yet another Mario game to put on the shelves, further highlighting this iconic character, as well as provide fans with a new storyline of sorts without veering too far from what they know and love. The second story idea that I have is the mystery of Boo hauntings in the Mushroom Kingdom. Imagine a game that could somehow combine Mario and Luigi's Mansion style games. We could see Mario be the main character, Luigi be the main character, or it could be a duo-led game like the Mario and Luigi series. But in this game, the brothers have to work to figure out why the Boos are haunting the Mushroom Kingdom and how to drive them out. You would be able to use a lot of the same inquisitive tactics that you see in other visual novel games such as Ace Attorney, where you look for evidence, question witnesses, and go about finding a way to solve the mystery. And I feel like this title in particular would be a great one to release around the Halloween season because that would sort of break up the monotony of only having Luigi's Mansion as a quote-unquote horror game. Because let's face it, it's obvious that Nintendo is not bringing back Eternal Darkness or Geist anytime soon. The third story idea that I have is the mystery of the Cap Kingdom. The Cap Kingdom in Super Mario Odyssey was one of my favorite kingdoms in the entire game. I immediately fell in love with the story of the Caps and why they are ghosts, and I would love to explore that further and even get a bit more insight into their origin story. If the next 3D Mario, as it has been rumored to be, is going to be a sequel to Mario Odyssey, this would be a great tie-in/filler while Nintendo finishes it up and gets it out the door, and sort of give fans a bit of extra context as to why Mario and Cappy have to work together. And there you have it. That's my expectations for what Nintendo may do with the Mario series going forward. Let me know how you feel about the possibility of a Mario visual novel game, or if you think Nintendo should take a different route. As always, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Thanks for watching, and game on, friends.